So first of all, welcome everyone here, especially to Darshana. Thanks a lot for just talking to us, and it's experience that teaches us all, and I'm sure we have a lot to learn from your experience. So Darshana is an amazing person whom we will get to know more throughout through this conversation. She's a PhD from University of Cambridge and pursuing her interests in educating girls and women in science and many other programs which she will talk about. So let's just say hello and get started. So we will really not ask a lot of Google kind of questions in this conversation, because I'm sure that people who are listening to this podcast will already have Googled her name and found out everything about her that's online. Yeah. So to know more, I would first like to know more in terms of where are you from, and how was your childhood? What sort of schooling did you go through?
Okay. Thank you, Dhavala, and thank you, Team Zeroing, Shreya and Naman, for having me here today. I'm really excited to be here, and my apologies that we couldn't do it yesterday as planned. So, but I'm grateful that you could accommodate it today. So I'm really excited to be sharing the path that me and my partner we started traveling on and post our PhDs in physics. And I think it's an exciting time in India, I would say, to begin to bring many people from mainstream science into education and shaping the aspirations and the technical skill of the country. Because a lot of time as researchers, we are confined in the four walls of our labs and not really thinking about the problems that really matter solving for our community. So what we are doing here at VigyanShaala, we are trying to bring, be the bridge between the society and the science at the frontiers and bring more innovators from the grassroots. And I think obviously I'll talk more about it later. So that's a bit about me. But coming to your question, Dhavala, about my childhood. So I am daughter of a first generation migrants from Uttarakhand. So my parents were like farmers in Uttarakhand before they moved to Delhi. When agriculture in Uttarakhand became unsustainable, they had to literally move their lives from there because the produce was no longer sufficient to feed the family for the entire year, blame it on climate change or the overuse of non-organic farming kind of thing. But it did become difficult for them to sustain. The generations before theirs were able to sustain better, but then by the time it was the late 80s and all, the produce and the output in agriculture in Uttarakhand was declining sharply. And when I was 7 years old, first my father moved to start working as an electrician with municipal corporation in Delhi. And then later when I was around 7 years old, my entire family moved to Delhi. So I went to a municipal corporation school in Delhi from class 3 onwards. And it was an interesting school. Teachers had a very strong impression on me, and they sort of shaped my aspirations. My school teacher advised me when I was finishing my primary school, so he asked my father that he should admit her to this special school that Delhi government had then started for young people from students from municipal schools to go and attend these schools that had services at par with private schools. And I was really lucky to get into that school, and that sort of shaped the trajectory of my life. It was a very, very interesting school with lots of people with high potential and amazing teachers and a brilliant library and science labs. So I think that sort of spiked my interest in science. And
so was it like, the municipal school versus private, was it, really different, or in those days?
Yeah, it was pretty different.
Was it in Delhi?
Yeah, it was pretty different. Though our school had a basic building, we used to sit on on ground on mats, and sometimes our windows
Okay.
didn't have glass in them. So it was classic government school. But I was glad. Yeah, I was glad that the teachers were pretty good. And one thing is like these corporation school are considered like the worst schools in Delhi, I would say. But
exactly.
Yeah. But then it is there our aspirations were nurtured, and my interest in science was picked up. But I think the school that I went from class 6 onward until 12th had the most amazing community out there, a tribe of people that truly defined who I am and that shaped my aspirations. I had a group of peers who were you can imagine like the toppers of all the corporation school actually write an exam to get through these schools, and then and then they had a very super selective batches, and we all
so it's a merit based race that you had to sort of
it was a merit based thing. And I was so I would say I was like always the top 3 of my class, even in the primary as well as after that. But I think in this school is we had a brilliant library and an amazing librarian, so who would go and collect old issues of Scientific American and other things from other places and bring that to the school. And that and we had a wonderful series of Britannica encyclopedia and a lot of other encyclopedias. So that sort of exposed us to the outer world. And she was like, I think when I say that my interest in science wasn't actually laid in a practical room or in a classroom, but in the library, I think I would say that's what people would always think. I mean, of course, our teachers were amazing, and our lab periods, as well as our science teacher, both had a very strong impression on me. But then it was the library that took that interest to another level. We had access to books on advanced calculus and all in our school library. And Shreya, you must have studied differential calculus. So Thomas and Finney is a very, very classic.
Exactly.
Dhavala, I think you must have also. Sorry, I missed that.
But so, it's a very BSc level book.
So
it's not something you will find in
in a school library. So we had like university physics and Thomas and Finney, IL Finar, and chemistry, like advanced books in chemistry, these things. So our librarian was like, she went above and beyond her duty to get these books in there. And when I was in class 11th, our school subscribed to this magazine on science education called Resonance from Indian Academy of Science. And and a chapter in there by Professor Rohini Godbole and Professor Sunil Mukhi of TIFR literally blew my mind off. It was like Nobel for a minus sign, and it talked about subatomic particles, for which the Nobel Prize in 2003 was given. 3 or 4, I can't remember it exactly. And that article was like, oh my God, like protons, electrons, and neutrons can further be split into quarks and all. And it was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. And I think that was like my eureka moment. And I was like, okay, I don't want to be an engineer. I don't want to be a medic. I want to be a physicist, and I want to study physics. And so, that's what, so I think inspiration can come from anywhere. And seeing that tiny photo of Rohini Godbole in a sari and specs in that magazine, I was like, oh my God, she looks so relatable. She looks like my mother, and a scientist can look like that. And I think having that access to inspiration early on is what set me on that path.
And a very beautiful point that you pointed out was that you could see someone who was relatable to you. So it gives you a possibility ki haan, hum bhi kar sakte hain. It is possible.
Absolutely. So I think relatability has been a theme in whatever I've done so far. So okay, I hope that answers the question about school. Okay.
Right. I mean, I can't sort of not, but just for what can you allow me to share my screen, Shreya? Because this is such a important thing. I was also very can I share the screen? You're muted actually.
Go ahead.
So this is the picture which I like personally of Rohini ji. I mean, when she took this Nobel Prize, and I mean, actually she looks very much like my aunt.
Yeah, Padma Shri, right?
There
Yes,
was yes,
yeah.
this is she picking the Padma Shri, and she's quite simple in her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's superb. So I think having that inspiration, what you're saying, right? Like somebody seeing that, oh, this is what a scientist looks like, I think is really, really important. And it can push that inspiration to the next level in that sense.
Because at some point we start, bifurcating that we are normal humans, we cannot reach that level. But when you see people like us up there, it does give you quite a push.
It's also kind of really important that when you say the name of a scientist, then the pictures that align in our heads are Feynman, Einstein, and a hell lot of
lab coats and
men out there. Very rarely does someone like Marie Curie or someone else pops up. And this is another thing that we'll kind of talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And this thing about Marie Curie, like, sorry, and this is completely out of context, but I just wanted to say this, like, people idolize Einstein and Feynman a lot, but I think Marie Curie was like far ahead of her times, both in terms of the science she did and how innovative she was, and the biases that she had to face were far more potent. But then, it is, I think, if 98 people say that they idolize Feynman or Einstein, only 2 would say that they idolize Marie Curie, even though she was equally brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, she was equally brilliant, and also a lot of people are brilliant, but it takes 10 times the effort to put up against the challenges which are put forth by the society and still do what you want to do. That's something. Because we all face something or the other at some stage, and we say, "Chalo yaar, theek hai rehne." For instance, I would say even Einstein's wife, she sort of gave up. I would say, she was really super smart, but then she stayed back for domestic life, instead of pursuing science really well. All right,
that is true.
Just carrying forward. In your school, like, I mean, there was library and so on. How was your group of friends, and how did you have any small activities, or did you have any anything that you did in particular that you can talk about in schooling to keep your science interests up?
So
of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one thing that when I look back at my journey, I would say, I think persistence, hard work, and tribe are the 3 things that sort of stand out. I think hard work and persistence is what has got all of us here. I would like to focus on tribe. So I think it's really important that you find the right people who align with you early on, and it is your people around you who have huge potential in terms of how your interests are going to shape, especially when you are in school. So we were 4 very close friends in school, and out of 4, 3 of us are scientists. And it just started early on in that sense. And imagine a small government school in Delhi creating this kind of magic and creating this kind of space where students were not judged. They were just left out to be by themselves in that sense. And our teachers created a very, very conducive and positive environment for us for self-discovery and questioning. Questions were always welcomed in classes, whether it's literature or whether it's science. So I think it is possible for a government school to create that kind of environment if you have all the right kind of people who are driven by a common mission. So yes, the teachers and the library, it had a very, very strong impact. But apart from that, it was my friends and the group of people that forms the tribe that I'm part of. And I would say, like, I give this advice to young people a lot of time that, try to learn something new every week and share it with friends. So suppose if you share it with 3 friends, you learn 4 new things in that week, right? So, and everybody learns 4 new things in that sense. And I think that's what we were doing, and used to sort of have a competition. There were these 2 really brilliant kind of people in my class. One is a scientist with DRDO right now, and the other one did his PhD at IISc. So, and three of us would always have this thing, like, I want to tell something new to them this week. And so we would read up some really interesting stuff, either on newspapers or in the books. Like, internet was not
So
such an in
accessible,
thing back then. I think it was only after we came in class 12th and all, it became slightly like, the dial-up connections had just started coming in by 2003, 2004. So so the friends did make a big difference. And apart
like,
from that,
what about, like, boys versus girls? Was this there in when you studied? I mean, for instance, like, I mean, at least with me, when I was in, high school or so, all the, like, if there was a smart girl, then this was like,
ये कैसे हो
it
गया?
was smart ones used to be boys in my class, not like we were 2-3 girls who were always the top, and this was like, in that class there are 3 girls who top. So or any such things which you kind of
so that's what I meant, like, when I said, like, our teachers didn't do much moral policing on us compared to other government schools. I have this picture of me when I was the class monitor, and our class won the cleanest and most well-decorated class. So I'm standing in middle, and then I have these 12 boys from my class around me. And in a other government school, it wouldn't have been allowed. And our school was like, teachers were very friendly and open-minded, and they didn't do this segregation. Every year we had like annual prize distribution ceremony, and I think almost in every grade, out of 3 top 2, or like 2 out of 3 positions would be backed by girls. So I think it was pretty natural in there. And now I see a lot of people, especially girls, struggling with maths and all, and I realized that was not the thing back then in our school. We like, the toppers of our class with highest marks in mathematics and science were mostly girls. Of course, boys were equally good, but I think if you look at the proportion of girls versus boys, the girls would surely outnumber boys in those days.
I actually like that when you say, of course the boys were good.
Not demeaning them.
I mean, they were there, but it was not until I think I went from school, I went to a girls' college, Miranda House. I never faced that girls versus boys until then, but it was only in my master's when I came and I realized, yes, people do have a bias for you when you are coming from, you are a girl and you are being looked, your opinions are not being taken as seriously. And I think because I had such an open and free upbringing until then, of course, there were things like, because 20 years ago, the society was way more conservative than what it is today, right? So people did have these questions and all, but neither at home nor at college, not at school, our ability to do science or maths was ever questioned as a girl. So, I mean, we had other social restrictions in the sense that, like, parents would be very, very cautious in sometimes thinking, okay, you're mixing way too much with your male friends and all. But the ability to question my ability to do maths or science was neither from my parents nor from the school. But it was as I moved into I would say my introduction to the frontiers of Indian science circles started, I realized that yes, it is a thing there, and you will be questioned for your gender.
But like, in this period, that's when you wanted to do, you said that you read this article in Resonance, and you really wanted to do science. And when you after your 12th, I don't know how it was with you. I'm curious. At least in my part of the country, everyone, like, at least in my town, everyone is born to be an engineer or a doctor. So how, I mean, did you have to, was it like when you said, I am going to do BSc in Miranda House, it's okay? Or was it like, no, you had to convince someone that
So it's interesting. I would say, thank God my parents didn't study beyond school in that sense. So they had no idea about what decision I'm going to take. Of course, they heard that engineering could be done. So I did write IIEEE and IIT. IIT, of course, I didn't clear because I didn't prepare for it. But IIEEE, I had a decent rank. A decent rank to get a seat in Uttarakhand, which is my home state. I did sit for engineering counseling and all, but it was around that time when I was writing those exams and all, I was like, no, I want to do physics, and I really, really love physics, and that's what I'm going to do. So my school physics teacher, though he really liked me, and he was like, Darshana, there is no future after doing a BSc. What will you do? And my school principal was like, oh, you're going to Miranda? Hawa lag jayegi. You would be all spoiled. So. But I think a year later, when I met my school principal, she was like, oh, I'm proud that you went to Miranda. You like completely, your confidence has opened up, your personality has opened up. But thinking of my school physics teacher and my high school years, I just wanted to bring up topic of how much pressure as teenagers we put ourselves under. So I wanted to score a perfect 100 in physics. I was like, I don't care how much I'm going to score in other subjects. And my pre-board results and all were hinting in that direction that I will at least score, above 95 and in that bracket and all. But comes the day of exam, the physics exam, I could not sleep before that night because I had put myself under so much pressure. I could not sleep. I woke up. I was trembling in fear. My center was hardly 2 kilometers away from my house. My mother had to come because I was palpitating. I was not able to breathe. And ever since that day, I have had a fear of exams that lingered on until I finished my PhD Viva. And I really screwed my class 12th exam. Okay. I couldn't, I blanked out in the middle of the exam, and I could not attempt paper worth 22 marks. Whatever I had attempted was correct. But I just blanked out for half an hour. I just sat there. I couldn't do anything. And this is something I want to tell people, that please do not put yourself under so much pressure. I mean, never.
So your episode of this you think is completely because of your own expectations, or I mean, nobody outside, but it's like you yourself had put that frame in your head that I'm going to is it just that?
Of course, teacher and parents have expectations, but I think it is up to us how we deal with it, right? In the sense that parents and teachers also need to be careful with their children. But my parents were really chill. They were like, perform well, achhe marks le aao, we'll distribute sweets for you, and we are happy as long as you are progressing. So my parents were never those kind of people who would sit on my head, what next? Mostly because they didn't have that kind of exposure themselves. Like my father was an electrician in municipal corporation, and they both have just studied till class 10th and both studied in village. So they didn't know much what to do after it, right? Only my cousins who were doing something and all. So I absolutely had no role models to look up to at that particular point. And the only role model that many of you will identify with was Kalpana that we saw, and that was in class 8th or 9th, and that time I wanted to become an engineer, but then Rohini could bole say encounter hua, and then I realized that okay, I want to be a particle physicist and all, but there was no immediate proximity. Like Dhavala, as you said, your part of the country has a lot of emphasis on engineering and medical. Of course, it is there in Delhi as well. My classmates were going and preparing in Akashas and Fitzies of the world and all. My parents didn't have the resources, nor did I pressure them to do it for me. I knew if I had to do something, I have to do it on my own, and I have to figure out my own way in that sense. Oh, thank you for the tea. Sorry. So, yeah, my husband just brought me some tea, so how sweet. Thank you. So, so sorry for getting distracted. But yeah, there were people who were doing it, but my family didn't have that kind of financial resources. And and thankfully, my interest had gone towards physics. And I had a tuition teacher who taught me really well, like physics and maths. So I quite enjoyed, and I really loved just soaking in those problems and all at that particular point. So it thankfully limited exposure to family meant that I didn't have pressure from their side. So mostly putting myself under so much pressure to score a perfect 100 in physics was my own doing at that point, and I really wanted to do that. So and that led to another episode that lasted with me for the rest of 10 years in my life, I would say. That whole exam anxiety. Like every time before exams, my stomach would go bad. My blood pressure would drop. So and these things actually can be taken care of if we think positively about our mental health, and if we look for help. So I think whoever listens to this podcast, and if they are people in that age bracket, please don't put any exam so much importance in your life that it overtakes every other aspect of your life, right? Whether it's an IIT exam, whether it's a medical exam, whether it's a board exam or your university exam, it's just another exam which you can pass and you can figure out what next. That exam doesn't have so much power over your life. And I accidentally gave it that power, and I really,
I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, we don't realize that.
I think I think this is a very common thing. I mean, a lot of people have this, we somehow give it extra importance to
just
exams. Like, I mean, at least for me, it was like, parents or someone else telling, and even, of course, myself as well. And then every important 10th and then 12th and then JEE and this and that. It becomes so important. And now down the line, you're like, what? I don't care how much I scored in what exam. So it really...
Yeah.
So how was Miranda House? Like, sorry.
How was your college?
Sorry.
It's okay.
So thank you for that question. Miranda House was, I think, one of the most amazing thing that could happen to someone coming out of teens into tweens at that particular point. I think it defined my perspective for the world, seeing women role models in action, and being part of a community that was so vibrant, both in terms of the academics that we did and the extracurriculars. One good thing about Miranda House was, I would say, weekly extracurricular afternoon. So Wednesday afternoon, our college would go off at 12, and from 12 until 5, we would take part in different extracurriculars. So I was part of the physics society as well as the quizzing society. There were dramatics, there were classical dance, there were Western dance, there were like creative writing. There were like hundreds of clubs in Miranda House and entrepreneurship cell and all, name it, and that activity existed. And I think having a slotted, dedicated time for that helps, because it doesn't mean that you have to compromise with your academics. And I met again some of the most amazing friends here who walked this journey with me in science. And I think, again, when I'll go back to that theme, when I say tribe is super important. So in Miranda House, I met two of my most amazing friends, Srishti and Renu. And it was during Miranda House that I was introduced to Professor Shobna Narasimhan, who has been our mentor since 2008 now. So
it goes back to your Miranda House days.
Second year. So second year BSc.
Okay.
So 2008.
She visited the college, or?
No, so our college principal, Dr. Pratibha Jolly, is a very, very active Indian physics educationist and physicist, I would say. And she and Shobna were co-organizing this amazing conference on showcasing the science and technology by women scientists in India. And Pratibha used to teach us quantum mechanics class. So she invited our entire class to come and be part of this conference, 2-day conference at Vigyan Bhavan. And I had told her about this whole Rohini Godbole episode, about like how she inspired me. She's like, oh, Rohini is coming, you should meet her there. And I was really excited.
So you were meeting your
inspiration.
Dream star.
Dream star, So there, Professor Pratibha Jolly introduced me to Professor Shobna Narasimhan, and Professor Shobna Narasimhan introduced me to Rohini Godbole. But I fell in love with Shobna, me and two of my best friends. I mean, Shreya, I don't know whether you know Shobna or not. Like, she is a personality worth falling in love with. And, at that particular point, seeing, oh my God, this could be me a few years down the line was very, very exciting. And so Shobna basically gave us our first inspiration and break in science, I would say. So me and two of my friends, Srishti and Renu, 3 first-generation learners, not knowing where their future in science is going to be, they joined physics for their love of physics, but what next is not clear. And we tell Shobna, we want to come and do a project with you, and we write to her. And she replies back saying, and she replied back, so that one email meant so much to us.
So much,
So she's like,
actually, I mean,
go ahead.
No, I mean, this, I mean, now it seems, now in this stage of my life, it seems fine. But as a student, I can completely resonate with your feelings, when you actually look up to someone and then you have so much question in your head that, oh, if I write, you have that question in your head and then you think, what will happen if I write? And you don't write for a very long time. And then finally one day you write it and then you get a reply. You're like, damn. How come?
Was it so straightforward?
Yeah, and you feel grateful that they take out time to consider you seriously. So Shobna replied back saying, "Hey, I have only one position, so I can accommodate only one of three of you. However, I will keep looking if I can find another one." So then a week later, Shobna says, "Another professor is interested in interviewing one of you, but again, that just position under promise." So what we did, 3 19-year-old girls from Delhi told their parents, we got a project in Bangalore and we are going. With one project. And our family is like, okay. And then it so happened one of the friends' father's posting accident, like, by luck, was had been to Bangalore that year. He was in Air Force. So we're like, okay, chalo, we have a place to stay also. So we told our
parents. Figured out everything.
I mean, no, Renu's father had posted to Bangalore. So we had a place to stay. So we're like, chalo, we'll go and we'll see what happens next. And now, that time it didn't occur to me. But now when I look back, I'm like, oh my God, we were very bold as, 19 years old girls who had no exposure, no idea about life. And have never gone, the only place out of Delhi I had gone to was my village and Delhi. My village in Delhi, I have never traveled. So 3 of us boarded a train with Renu's family to Bangalore. We go to her place and then they're like, so then Renu's family discovers that, oh, they don't have 3 projects. They got only 1 project and one potential interview, and third person has no idea. So I was like, "Kaam karo, you both go to JNC, I'll go to." So I knew from Resonance that there is something called Raman Research Institute, and I was like, okay, I'll go and check there, and I'll go to IISc also. I'll knock a few professors' office and I'll ask them. And it sounds so like I wouldn't do it now. Now I wouldn't go and walk into somebody's office knocking. I can't do that. But as a 19-year-old, I did that. I went to RRI and I went from office to office asking people. I'm like, hey, I'm from Delhi and I want to do a project. Do you have a position?
So this is nice, actually. I mean, I would really emphasize on this, people listening to this, guys, you can do this.
Yeah.
Totally do this.
So I literally barged into RRI and I'm like, I'm here to meet professors, and I knew a few names from the Resonance, which I knew. So I just went. I went to Professor Deshpande's office. I went to Professor Bimanath's office. I know all those names, and then eventually I went to So astrophysics, I had no luck. Then I went to soft condensed matter, and then there was Professor Arun Rai. He's like, hey, I have a position and I would like to offer it to you. Let's do the paperwork. Literally by that afternoon, 3:30, I had a summer internship in my hand.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Nice.
Yeah. And which would start anytime next week. I was like, okay, this is wonderful. So then we did the paperwork and I got it. And unfortunately, what happened with Renu, that the professor who interviewed her, she was like, she had somewhat higher expectations and we were too young for them. So now Renu didn't have a project. So then again, we did the same thing for her in RRI and we got another project in RRI. So by the end of 1 week...
RRI seems to be a nice place.
It is a very, very nice place, and they have a very nice summer program called Visiting Summer Research Program. VSRP. Right. And we were in, and we met some amazing friends from different parts of the country there, and that was our first forays into scientific world. So doing a project in soft condensed matter, and eventually I did my PhD in soft condensed matter. So it was a very interesting experience, and that sort of opened doors of academia and scientific research for us. And it was I would say that one sweet encouraging email from Shobhana that laid the foundation for it all. And when she learned about it, like, oh, she was so happy. And then
totally.
Yeah, and then this was second year. So third year, again, wrote all the entrance exams and all. And I was like, at that point, I was clear my family perhaps can't, afford too much expenses for my master's. So I got to know about master's where I could get a stipend and all. So I wrote exam for Indian Institute of Astrophysics, JNCSR, and a few others. Now I can't recall which ones were they. So, and then I got through IIA and JNCSR. And because Shobna was at JNCSR and that institute looked a lot more appealing, so I decided to go for material science. And I think that's how my association with mentoring association with Professor Shobna, as well as science continued. And she's been like I would say more than a role model or an ideal. She's actually extended a lot of pastoral care and support as a mentor to me, which has been very, very useful for us in our journey. And then Renu and Srishti also went on to do their PhDs with Marie Curie Fellowship. So 3 girls who had absolutely no idea about scientific research, who had absolutely no idea about what after BScs their families perhaps wanted them to do BEds or apply for government exams and all, ended up being in physics because we met a role model at the right time who decided to mentor us, and we had each other, so the tribe had each other to support whenever we could. We fell back on each other. So I think it's really important, relatable role model, mentors, as well as the tribe which can back you up.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, having people around who get your idea, that's it. That's also a huge motivation to pursue anything.
It's really inspiring. I mean, what I have seen, or I would like to pick from Shobna is she's not only exceptionally good. I mean, there's no second thought about how much she has accomplished as a scientist and how good she is. But a lot of scientists in the community most often do not reply, or they don't care for the community. They care for science, but for the community, not everyone does get back. There are only few. And Shobna is someone who actually goes one step ahead in these things and really helps the community. And one thing important is for us as a community is, okay, when we get a response like that, we know, okay, this is what we should do when we are in position to help. And like Darshana said that there is a set of 3 girls who are on their path, all set, and it was one email that changed their lives in some sense. And now there are these 3 people who are at different stages of their life, helping out others, and then the chain broadens.
So for us, like having this chance encounter with Shobana in Vigyan Bhavan, and that one reply from her basically defined our trajectory in science, was a defining moment for our trajectory in science. And now when I'm doing VigyanShaala, I'm building VigyanShaala, and we are running the program Kalpana Shifa STEM for helping girls make their next leap in science after their undergrad and postgrad degrees. And it is like, it is in this program that we don't want to leave these decisions to chance encounters, right? We want to give an environment where these partnerships and where these encounters are happening organically, and people are able to find the relatable role models and mentors that they need to make those decisions. So what we
how did it did it start, like this start, like I mean, how did you begin with this
because if
foundation?
you think about it, naturally after you would have done your MSc, let's say, you would have like gone for a PhD and you would prefer to stick to research. That's what I mean. Once you've done your PhD, you would like to stick to the research area. But doing something like this, so where was it born, like Dhavala pointed out?
That's a very good question, and I think again I would like to bring this back to how the PhD trainings in India, as well as in universities like Cambridge, can be super different. So I was at JNC, I was an integrated PhD student there, so I could have naturally finished my PhD at JNC, but I was having a difficult time there, and a lot of challenges. And so Shobana encouraged me, along with Professor Mishra. They were very encouraging. They said, Darshana, explore possibilities outside. And I was like, okay, I would like to apply to a few places and all. And both of them, Professor Shobana, Professor Umesh, and my master supervisor, Professor Prasad, they were helpful. But Shobana and Umesh were like one of the most supportive people in this journey, who told me, like, if you get a PhD in one of the leading universities in the globe, it will not just be about your academic, but much more. So when I was going to Cambridge, I remember Professor Umesh telling me, Darshana, make sure that you make the most of this PhD and not just confine yourself to the lab. And that's the thing I came to Cambridge with. And coming to Cambridge had been a very interesting chapter of my life in many ways. I came here and I got involved with outreach activities in the department, and seeing children as young as 8 years old coming and experiencing the magic of science, and elderly people as old as 80, 90 years old coming and listening to open lectures at night and being part of astronomy open evenings or science, like, our department.
I mean, common people.
Common people, non-scientific people. So a child as young as 7, 8 years old and an elderly person like of 90 years, they all are coming to university. University is open to them throughout the year on various occasions, and sharing its science, its knowledge with them, exciting them about science. People may say, oh, what use it is for a 90-year-old to come and listen to a lecture. He or she may not be able to, implement the learning or the knowledge directly, but they will inspire somebody else. So I think as universities, we need to be a lot more open spaces. And I think that culture,
that's what it's supposed to be.
Yep. That culture sort of struck me hard. And I was like, wish we had opportunities like this. The first experiment that I perhaps did was in class 10th. And until then, I had not seen experiments apart from, on Doordarshan, we used to have Professor Yashpal's lectures and all. I didn't see, experiments as such. So I was like, this is what I want to try and take it back to India. So it was during our PhD, like second year of my PhD, 2014, me and few other friends and my partner Vijay, back then he was boyfriend studying his PhD in Italy. So we both brought this group together and we called it Science Outreach India. We brought together a few more volunteers from good European universities as well as in India, and we did this series of outreach workshops in India. So we did like 5 workshops in Delhi, Patna, Agartala, Dehradun and Ghaziabad, and we engaged over 1,500 school children, and we, for every workshop, we brought in established Indian scientists as well, and we call it a fun day with science, and the response was enthralling. Like I think I haven't.
So this was when you were PhD student in Cambridge. You
in Cambridge
took your time off in vacation, sort of.
So out of my vacation, 5 weeks vacation, I came like after a year and a half, and I spent about 5 out of 5. I spent 3 weeks doing this. So traveling to these different places and doing these workshops. And we also did a workshop on women in science in Dehradun, and which was very, very inspiring. The outcomes were very inspiring. And we went back thinking that how do we take it to the next step? And by that time, the interest in the volunteer group became larger. And then I met this very interesting person called Shruti from Stony Brook University. She was also a PhD student doing a lot of outreach activities there. So Shruti and I, along with Vijay and my friend Aditya, we applied for a grant from Material Research Society for $10,000 called Grassroots Grant, and we won that grant. And we did a series of workshops called It's a Materials World next year in 2016 December and 2017 January, right before the submission of my PhD thesis, when I should have been writing my thesis. We started doing these activities, and we spent 1 complete month going to 10 different cities across India, and we found local partners, and we conducted, I think, around 16 workshops in those times, engaged close to 5,000 students from these different parts of the country. And it was very nice. Like, we got a lot of interest from Institute of Mathematical Sciences in Chennai, and IISER Pune, Delhi University. So it was very, very exciting. So by that time, that bug had smitten us much harder, and we're like, we want to shape it more. And I submitted my thesis, and another thing, like, not just this. So this entire outreach program, you can imagine, from making the grant application to booking every single ticket to finding every partner in India, all of it like, we did amongst ourselves. And I would say I not only facilitated the workshop, but did all the secretarial work as well. And this is all alongside a full-time PhD. And I think that was a very, very interesting experience for me, and which a lot of time PhDs in India miss out, because the environment as a whole doesn't encourage you to explore things outside of your lab. You are expected to be working odd hours in lab, nobody to look after your mental health or nothing else that keeps you exciting. And I think when you have something really exciting as a side hustle, it keeps your interest in the main job very high. And I think we need to encourage our PhD students to acquire transferable skills from a range of activities that are available to them. And not only this, I was very active with our students union in Cambridge. And once I submitted my thesis, I won the student election for, the president of postgraduate students union called Graduate Union in Cambridge by 65% majority against a British opponent. And that sort of, and that is another very interesting experience, I would say. In India, student unions are extremely politicized. In UK, they cannot have political affiliations, but you need to be totally centric upon your students' welfare. And winning this election, gave me 1 year sabbatical to run the union, and also got me elected into the board of trustees of Cambridge University called University Council. And then it elects you to another office, which is called the General Board, where all the academic decisions of the university are made. So running a charity, the Graduate Union, and then becoming part of Cambridge University's trustee board was a very, very interesting experience. And I was the first Indian woman to win that election in, last 800 years of Cambridge history. So,
that's wonderful.
so those things actually give you different edges to your career and different things. And having that experience and understanding how a university like Cambridge functions so democratically and is working at the forefront for, defining access and the future of education in that sense. And this got me thinking after I finished my tenure in July 2018. I was like, for the first time in my life, I didn't have it figured. Like, what am I going to do on 16th of July 2018? Because 15th of July it ended. Every time it happened, I BSc finished, came MSc. MSc finished, went to PhD. PhD done, went to Graduate Union. And for that one moment in my life, I had no idea where I was going. And I used to tell my partner by the time I was married as well. And I was like, Vijay, please make this choice for me. Shall I continue in academia? Shall I go and shape VigyanShaala, or shall I go into consulting or something? Because a lot of physics people with this kind of university extracurricular experience would want to go into consulting as well. And I was actively considering consulting and had some introductions into the big fours and all. And I was confused as hell. I was like, where is my life gonna be and what gives me meaning? And to this, my partner said, Darshana, take a break, think more carefully. What is it that you would like to enjoy for the rest of your life, or at least next 10 years? And I went mad. I can't tell you. I couldn't stay khali for that, stay free for that one day. And by the night I was applying for postdoc jobs and all. And but having this super supportive partner was also very helpful. And he said, Darshana, don't apply, take a break and think more carefully. And so I took a break for 3-4 months. I kept going to my PhD lab to finish some of the work that was pending. And it was during this time that Vijay and I decided, hey, let's do one thing. Let's shape VigyanShaala more carefully and with interest, and see what it does. Doing outreach activities is all right. You do one outreach activity, people get excited, student may get interested, and they go on. But then that interest, would die down for many of them, and there will be only a few. So you need to design programs that have long-term impact and all. So we both took a pause. So I wouldn't say we have given up our research careers entirely, because we are pursuing them in a very different aspect, and how we are doing that, I'll come back to that. But we paused our active research careers, came back to India, needed to have a plan B, so that if things fails, then we need to do something else. So we got this exceptional talent visa from UK, which gives you, a visa that is not tied to your employment, and you can go back anytime in the next 5 years and get your this thing endorsed by Royal Society. So that was very helpful, having that as a back thing. And at the front, we started shaping VigyanShaala, and Vijay decided to join me. He was like, I am not looking at having a long distance marriage, but also at the same time, this is a work that both of us have been involved with it. You are way more passionate than I am, but I think I can bring some value to it too, and doing it alone would be difficult. And the initial idea was that he would stay for a year or two, and then he may go back to his research. But 3 years later, both of us are still here. And so we both started shaping VigyanShaala from there. 2019, we came back to India. 2018 and actually December, and we came back to India, and we decided, where do we want to position ourselves, what kind of organization is it going to be. And we spent like much of 2019, Vijay and I spent living out of a suitcase. We went to different parts of the country, almost 10 different states, met a lot of NGO partners, institutions like IITs, ICERs, Homi Bhabha Center for Science Education, and NGOs like Pratham, Agastya Foundation, Tata Steel, like a lot of different people, to understand what is happening in science ecosystem in the country, and where do we want to position ourselves. And also did very extensive studies of aspiration of people in Uttarakhand. So I come from Uttarakhand, and I want to solve for providing quality education to people at the grassroots, so that they can solve the problems locally. So we like, okay, we want to position ourselves in Uttarakhand. So we spent around 3 months going to really last mile schools, somewhere where you have to climb for 5 kilometers and all, and collecting a lot of data on students and then teachers and their aspiration in science. And that's how VigyanShaala was born. We registered ourselves as a charitable trust, and decided to position ourselves in the college space, because we felt that that was the space we were closest to and we could relate with. And because to work in the school space, you need specific teachings and trainings, or pedagogical training on how to teach science and all. But we felt that college was a space where we can position ourselves in terms of not just inspiration, but also the skills that you would need upon graduating from college. And the age group that you're going to work with is slightly more advanced, so you can actually show them the best of science and technology and work with them. So that's how it was born. I realize this has been a long monologue, but I just quickly summarize. So we run 2 programs at VigyanShaala. One is the Rural STEM Champions program, which is like our passion project, because of which we came to India. And the idea was to bring every remote college in the country on its research map and bring fresh talent from the grassroots into frontiers of science. And the way we are going to do it is by providing scholarships and an ecosystem for doing frugal research at these colleges. People doing, say, circadian rhythm of a fruit fly, which won the Nobel Prize. That experiment can be done with, say, resources under 1,000 rupees in a way. So we are trying to bring out projects like those, which students can pursue in those environments and gain advanced research and STEM skills, so that they can then utilize it for localized problem solving or making their next leap in science. So that's our passion project. And there we are nurturing these undergraduates, identified undergraduates from a given college, to be community champions. So we give them science engagement training. The workshops that we were doing earlier in schools, these STEM champions would now go and do in their communities locally. So the younger children see them as role models, and these people work with people like Dhavala, me, and Shreya, and they have a bridge to knowledge, and they become knowledge and inspiration pipeline for the community. So we are still shaping that project. It is being piloted with 4 colleges in Pithoragarh and Champaut districts of Uttarakhand, which is like really last mile districts close to Nepal border. And the other program, which is program Kalpana, which was born between the lockdowns in the pandemic, it tries to address another very interesting and unique problem in Indian science, the so-called women in science problem. So Kalpana was born out of, my love for Kalpana Chawla, I would say, like how she was such a visible role model for girls in India, as well as we wanted to give girls a space to recreate and imagine possibilities for their future. And we realized that that problem was pretty universal in India. It just didn't happen to girls from marginalized communities, but girls from well-off backgrounds were also dropping out of science. So like we have achieved parity in terms of undergraduate enrollment of girls in science, right? More than 45% undergraduates in India studying science are girls. But their participation in workforce remains super low, less than 15%. So we lose 2/3 of the population, in the process. So our goal is, how do we make this population sufficient, self-sufficient, and increase their self-efficacy to pursue a career in science? And that's how Kalpana was born. We've piloted 3 batches of the program, and we have mentored over 1,000 girls now. Many of them have gone to top universities across the globe and in India as well. And every single girl that has participated in the program has reported that their clarity about their career, long-term clarity about their career, and the confidence that they can pursue this has increased. And with this program now, our goal is to reach 10,000 girls in next 18 months. So we are looking for many people like you, Dhavala and Shreya, who are sitting at, in different parts of the world, to commit, 3 months of their time to mentoring a girl and, paying it forward what you've received in life to these young girls now. So so with that, I will just take a pause, like long monologue. But that's how the whole journey happened.
It was a kind of moment for like it's.
Thank you.
Although I mean, you call it a long monologue, but it was really thrilling. I was almost at the edge of my seat listening to that translation of your journey from a PhD student to the council and various experiences. I'm sure we can go long, keep going on this. But I mean, some questions that would just come to any common person. It's really inspirational, and if I'm a young kid looking forward to various things, I would ask you for mentorship and various things. But how do you keep it sustainable? Isn't pursuing something of this put you really in a vulnerable situation financially? Are you afraid of such things?
It does. Thank you, Dhavala, for that question. And it does. And to be honest, when we came to start the organization, we had no idea of what it was going to take, and we had our meager savings from PhDs that just vanished in a year's time. And it's like starting up any business, I would say, even though we are registered as a charity, it is a business that we are building, and it's a business
because
of doing
you have to live.
Yeah, we have to live. And nothing in our training as a scientist prepares you to do a startup. So whether you are doing a scientific tech startup or a social startup, nothing prepares it for it. It's a very, very interesting and unique journey. It was only a year and a half later in our journey that we realized, I mean, we needed support, but it came almost a year and a half later. We have some interesting incubators in the country called the Nudge Institute that runs a Center for Social Innovation. And then IIM Bangalore runs NSRCL social cohort, which is again incubates social organizations, and they give you the startup capital to pilot your ideas and all. So just when we were like, oh, our money is drying up and we may perhaps need to return to our postdoc careers, these breakthroughs happened. And we had the startup capital to further go on and test. And once you start validating your ideas, the money keeps flowing in. And now one big emphasis, in the sector is on self-sustainability of the organization. So for example, program Kalpana, our goal is to make it self-sustainable in the future. Like, so every girl, whether she's coming from a rich or a poor background, in that stage needs the kind of support Kalpana offers. So we have tried to tweak the model in such a way that the program remains heavily subsidized and free for girls who are coming from families that have an annual income of less than 3 lakh per annum or are facing any hardship in their life. But girls who are coming from families that have slightly more income, they can pay a small fee of around 2,000 rupees to attend the program. So that ensures that
it depends on their background. If you can,
Yeah, if you can, we say pay you can. Like, suppose if they are coming from families which are above the income bracket, and they say that their families will not pay for it, we are happy to offer them a bursary. So it's like every person who pays ensures that 2 more girls can attend the program, right?
Nice.
So it's like, pay it forward kind of a thing. So, and that's how it is going. And for other parts of the organization running and the salaries and the team that we are building. So right now we are 3 of us in the core team who are PhDs. We have another amazing person who is our lead of program development, program and curriculum development. She did her PhD at Stony Brook, not Stony Brook, Sunny Buffalo, State University of New York at Buffalo, and postdoc from US. So, and she's now in the program and curriculum development. She was one of the mentors with the program earlier. So we are expanding our team. We are getting towards a place where the organization is going to be self-sustainable with the grants as well as the investments and student payouts and all. And we are looking forward to becoming a place where scholarships, opportunities, job opportunities, internship opportunities are aggregated and people can benefit by, appropriate matching by using the technology and all. So it is headed in a direction where in next 2 to 3 years time, the org will be stable enough and I think will be as big as a small institution in itself. So a lot of people soon, soon.
You'll soon become a university.
Not really university. I mean, I think this is what Vijay and I keep talking about. Like, institutions were a very 20th century thing. The 21st century thing is going to be different kind of networks and how those networks leverage each other virtually as well as physically. So I think for girls in science, we want to create this global ecosystem where a girl sitting in Africa can collaborate with a girl sitting in India or Australia, and together they can build a solution for a sustainable world for that matter. And we want to be that facilitator, and we are headed in that direction. And and a lot of scientists, people with science trainings, don't realize that research prepares them for a number of different things that they can do. Your skills that you acquire during your PhD are extremely transferable. They can be utilized for a range of problem solving. And all we need to be slightly bolder and explore a side hustle. You may never know, in exploring that side hustle, you may actually find your passion like we did. So I think I would highly encourage people who are listening to this podcast that never be afraid of giving. Not afraid. I think a lot of time we feel guilty if we don't spend time in lab, So I would say don't feel guilty of not spending your full time in this thing. Find a side hustle that keeps you interested, takes care of your mental well-being, and this you will ensure that your per unit time output in your research would be much higher than what you were getting otherwise. And this entire process will also prepare you for much more bolder avenues in future, right? So whatever you may be doing may have a commercial potential, but you are afraid to explore it. But if you have a side hustle that keeps you going, find your interest, align with a group of people that feels equally passionate about, share your ideas. Don't be afraid to share ideas. A lot of time people are like, oh, this is my idea, I want to keep it tight to my heart and all. And I'm like, everything that we are building at VigyanShaala is open source. And we're like, if people can implement it, let them implement, because we need many more problem solvers. So I think as researchers, as aspiring researchers, or as aspiring STEM professionals, let's take it upon us that we use our skills for things beyond the lab.
It's really an important message, because often for PhD students, they are often tied to their work so much that they often do not have any other skills, or even if they do, we are really focused on our own academia and our own small little world. And then when it actually comes to becoming professionals, we run out of choices, but we made it so narrow ourselves. So this is an important message.
Absolutely. And we're also afraid to acknowledge that my skills can be useful elsewhere. So I think once that fear goes off, then it gets much easier.
Yeah.
Right. It's often that even speaking in a little specialized way, even in when you're tied to research and lab, often people end up doing just their experiments so much that even within the framework of that PhD, they don't have additional skills of writing, expressing, speaking about their research. And what she has done is, the ultimate thing, like, just go out and explore and build yourself as a personality.
Absolutely. So true. Like, I mean, even the mentoring that we are offering is by PhD. Like, we don't want early PhDs in there, but our goal would eventually be to train PhDs and postdocs to be effective mentors, because then they can be better professors, I would say.
Exactly.
So, but then right now we are looking at early career postdocs and other people who can be mentors in this program, can get all the training that they need from us, and implement that training not just with the program Kalpana, but also in their academic avatars and all, and they can utilize it, and it can give them an edge in whenever they are going into these professions.
Nice. Yeah, it was really nice. To just know about how you have gone. So Shobna told me about you, and I was like, I'm curious.
Thank you.
But I mean, but it's really so much, and you have exposed us to plenty of things, and I think I'll sign up on your web page.
Thank you. I mean, I'll keep you in the loop. So our next cohort may be coming in December, so we will we'll write to you, and we give mentors training, so that we are like, that's also, and we have and another thing, like, this is another random piece of advice to people who are considering starting up anything, right? So whether it's a scientific offshoot or a social offshoot, iterate early and iterate often. Whatever your idea, whatever. So we are too obsessed with perfection, and we don't realize that even if we build a perfect product, whether people will use it or not is not clear, right? So if your idea has come to a stage like where it's 60-70% done, go out and test it with the users, and with the help of users, design it around the users. Like, take their input, what would they like and how would they like to do it. So in our journey, we have tested our product both with the mentors and the mentees, and their active input has come into our product, and that's how we have designed various aspects of the program. So this goes out for anybody who's even considering doing any startup in any direction. So iterate early, iterate often, and design it around the users and not around what you would like it to be.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Thank you.
If I would take, one message out of Darshana's interview, it would be something like, what I see a common thread in the whole 1 hour of talk is that when she has an idea or something that she wants to try, she has just done it.
Yeah, and exactly. That's a big thing.
Often we do have ideas and we keep spending our lives thinking of whether to do it or not. So it's really nice that, you just have to do it. She wanted to go explore. Chalo, chalega yaar and, started knocking.
Exactly.
Hey, do you have a project? So it begins with such an attitude, and it reflects in all phases of her life. And it's I think that would be a message for us to take, that, just try it and
just do it.
Just do it, exactly.
I should. Thank you, Dhavala. That was really cool. I think I'm going to steal it for most of my. I think when you're looking from a different perspective, like I'm sitting here, I can't say that for sure, but you're looking from a zoomed out perspective. So that's a cool one. I think I'm going to use it in my talks now. Just do it.
Yeah. No, I mean, you may not say it, but then in every aspect of your whole journey, that's what I find it, I'm sure Shreya would also feel the same.
Yeah.
Like,
thank you.
Well, yeah, you want to do it. It's like a child. If a child wants to do something, you just do it. But as we grow, we seem to lose that, and we think of, for instance, even stepping out from conventional academia to try out something new. It's not an easy decision to make at all when we have to do it. And but she's like, okay, let's karte. So and then so that was really wonderful talking to you.
Exactly.
Thanks a lot, Dhavala. Thank you for this amazing interview and letting me share whatever little we've learned in the last 5 years of building VigyanShaala. And I'm really grateful, and I look forward to speaking to you more often, as a partner on our program, Kalpana. And thank you, Shreya. It was wonderful talking to you.
Yeah.
And I think we should touch base later on. I would like to get with your college, IISc, because we have had girls from ICERS and all coming into the program. So now we are looking at like as many, the institutions across the country we can do it with. It would be really amazing.
That would be wonderful. Yes. I mean, we're always here if you need anything.
Great.
That's always there on table. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot to both.
Thanks a lot.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say we should just keep in touch and see things to do together. I'd be happy to put my little bit into your program. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. And I just wanted to, go on the last question that you said, like advice to girls across the country. I just want to say, don't be limited by your fear or the boundaries that others put around you, because a lot of time those boundaries can be broken, but the push has to come from inside you, right? So find the right support that you need to break those boundaries and widen your dreams, right? Don't let anybody define that this is the limit to your dreams. You are the one who chooses what that limit is and how higher or farther you can fly. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, I think what you said really means it. It's not like you are saying something, but your life is a sort of testimony to what you're saying. It's really true. I mean, I'm sure that if people want to talk to you, they can just write to you, I believe, and get in touch and be part of your program. Often, I mean, I would say people who are in touch with this podcast, if you want to get in touch, it's often that you listen to people and then when you work closely with them, then just looking at them, you draw inspiration and things move on.
Thank you, Dhavala. Thanks a lot. People can write to me. My email ID you can share, darshana.joshi@VigyanShaala.com, and people feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or other social media. I don't use Instagram as much. I think that's the in thing with Shreya people of your age, right? So I still find it.
Even I'm not on that.
Even I'm not on that.
I am there, but it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm just there because sometimes my page needs to tag me, so I just be there. But I use Facebook and LinkedIn very regularly. I'm more accessible on LinkedIn and people can write to me there. So thank you.
Definitely. Thanks a lot for today's conversation, Darshana.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for taking out time, and I look forward to speaking and connecting with you both outside of this conversation as well.